Welcome, everybody, to Adapter Parish, episode 51, King Kong. As always, before we get into it, let's talk about our next episode. For those that don't know, Ariel and I are going to be bringing a new life into the world soon, and we wanted to commemorate that with a very special episode. Something about the joys of parenthood and the trials and tribulations of youth. Something wholesome. Something pure. Then we decided to scrap that and look at one of the original Scary Murder Children in The Bad Seed. We read William March's original 1954 novel. We watched the classic 1956 movie adaptation with Patty McCormack. We watched the less classic 1985 TV movie adaptation. And finally, we watched the even less classic and also our first Lifetime original movie with 2018's TV version of The Bad Seed. And it gets better. Not only does it star Rob Lowe, it also marked Rob Lowe's directorial debut. We're really excited about this one. That is in 2 weeks on September 24th. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe to get every new episode, and remember that we're always looking for suggestions, so don't hesitate to send them our way. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 51, King Kong, the Eighth Wonder of the World. Hello, and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. My name is Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw.
How are you doing?
I'm really pregnant.
Is that kind of defining how you feel about everything
There's
right now?
just a living creature that wants to kick me in the ribs and the bladder and various other parts.
I like the idea that it's like a lens that every other feeling you're having is going through. Like if you're a little hungry and someone said, "How are you feeling?" You could say, "Well, I'm a little hungry," and also super pregnant.
Yeah, that's what's happening right
We
now.
watched a sad movie. How did it make you feel?
Very
Well,
sad.
It made me feel very sad, and also I'm very pregnant.
But that's okay, because we're here to talk about something that makes you very happy.
Extraordinarily.
And that is the original Big Beefy Boy. Do you want to say?
Yes, Kong, Eighth Wonder of the World.
Yes. Kingly Kongley himself.
Yeah, it's his full name.
King. Now, so we watched 4 different King Kong movies, and we're going to be treating the original 1933 movie as the original, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken.
Now, tell me this.
Mm-hmm.
This 1933 King Kong movie, you have some history with it.
I have a little bit, yeah.
Can you tell me about your history with King Kong?
I mean, here's the quick version. I fucking love it. I grew up on it, and I've seen it a million times.
Great. And
it has gotten increasingly problematic with every year that passes.
That's very funny, because my next question was going to be, what was your experience watching it today in 2019?
A little different than when I was a kid.
Yeah. Okay.
When I was a kid, I didn't think about any of this stuff.
That's fine.
Dinosaurs fighting Kong. That was it.
We're going to dig into it. All right. So for those who are unfamiliar with the legacy of King Kong, do you have a back-of-the-box summary that you're prepared to read?
Here's the thing. I don't have a back-of-the-box summary because every box that I found for King Kong for the original only talks about, like, it's been remastered and we've got a documentary. Like, none of it says anything about the story. Maybe there's an assumption that, like, there's an understanding of the story in pop culture, in the culture, and they don't need to explain what it is.
Well, I think that's a poor assumption, because that's something we found out with The Godfather when we did that episode. Because we did no summary, and we had some very confused people going, I never saw The Godfather.
Yeah, no, we learned our lesson.
Yes, we learned our lesson. So I think you are uniquely situated to provide an excellent summary of the film King Kong, because A, you've seen it many times, and B, you're extremely excited to talk about the plot of King Kong.
Wait a second. I just want to make sure, uniquely situated among who?
You and me.
Okay.
Because, like, full disclosure, we tried to do this before, and I definitely could not keep the plot of this King Kong straight with the other ones that we watched. And it was a very frustrating experience for everyone.
You were kind of proud of yourself, too. You would say, and then they do this.
And you were like, no, they did not do that.
They don't do that until 2005.
Definitely did not do that, even a little bit. So
I felt really bad.
We're going to let you do it. because
Okay.
you're going to be good at it. Okay. So let's talk about the first scene of this movie. How does this movie begin?
Exposition.
Yes.
So there's a ship. It is in New York. It is right on the ocean, right on the water, as ships do. And this guy comes up to this other guy. So we got these two, immediately we've got these two fantastic characters. One of them's like kind of dirty and he's just a real kind of wharf rat. And the other guy is very high society and he has his jacket and he has his little bowler cap on and everything. And he basically says, I'm looking for Carl Denham. I need to know, is this the ship that he's on right now? And they have some exposition about like who Carl Denham is and what they're doing with this ship and how he goes to exotic places. And we found out all this information. And then this man goes on the ship.
And who does he meet there?
He meets a number of characters. Most important is Carl Denham,
Yes.
who is one of the main characters of this movie. Like, this movie's kind of weird because I don't think it has one main character. It has like 4 main characters.
Yeah.
We meet 2 of them here.
Yes.
The first is Carl Denham.
Yes.
He is the director. And up until this point, he has been known for directing all of these like nature documentaries, quote unquote nature documentaries, the kind that they made in like the late 20s and early 30s that were very exploitative and not very accurate.
Yes. And can you tell me what his attitude is towards having women actresses in his movies?
Well, he's not for it, but he's not really against it either. He knows he needs to do it, and so he's committed to it.
Right.
That's how he feels about it. He is committed to it.
Yeah. But for what reason?
Well, people want to see a pretty face.
Yes. Yes. So he's talked into it.
He has talked into it.
Right.
We also meet a couple other people. We meet the captain of the ship, Captain Engelhorn. He's just a delightful, delightful man who's not in a whole lot of the movie. And there is also the first mate, Jack Driscoll,
Yeah.
who is a man. He's a man with a hat and a shirt.
And
he's
muscles.
And he's got some... Does he? I mean, he's got like 1933
I was
muscles.
literally about to say he has muscles for 1933.
He looks great.
He looks fine.
His acting is not good.
It's there's the acting in this movie in general is, it's okay.
Yeah, he makes the actor playing Carl Denham look fantastic.
Yeah.
Who's Robert Armstrong as Carl Denham, and then we meet Bruce Cabot as Jack Driscoll. A quick thing about Bruce Cabot, that is not his real name. He moved to Hollywood. His name was Jacques de Bujac.
That's such a better name. Why wouldn't you keep calling yourself Jacques de Bujac?
Because it was 1933.
I guess, were we against the French?
I guess so. I mean,
I thought they were on our side.
here's the deal. Bruce Cabot has kind of he's got a different ring to it.
Okay,
It's got
fair
an old
enough.
Hollywood kind of thing to it.
Yeah.
So then, after that, basically what has happened is they do not have an actress. They need an actress, and Denham says, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to find one. So he goes out into New York City, and this is, of course, post-Depression. I guess in the Depression?
Yeah, can I describe what I wrote down as his process of finding an actress?
Yes.
This is what I wrote in my notes. Literally kidnaps a girl off the street.
I would argue that is I think you're over-dramatizing it, but you're also not wrong. And I think this is a good thing to get out of the way. Is Carl Denham an antagonist in this movie or a protagonist in this movie?
He basically goes to where he can find some homeless women and looks for a pretty one.
This is what happens.
Yes.
He's not a good guy.
Right.
And I don't think he is presented as a good guy in the movie. He's presented as like a really powerful personality that can get people to follow him, but his actions lead to people dying.
Yes,
And
that is extremely true.
I don't think the movie makes the case that his actions are good.
No, I don't think so. If anything, it's neutral.
Well, here's an interesting thing about the way he's portrayed in this movie.
Yeah.
So can I say a bit about how this movie was written?
Yes, absolutely,
I
you
wanna
can.
back up for a second. So Marion C. Cooper is like the guy who gets all the credit for this. And I would say he does. Like, basically, this idea came out of him, but it was like a mishmash of ideas. He wanted to do a movie about a gorilla. He wanted to do a movie about like a woman in the jungle. And then he kind of mashed everything together and kept farming the idea out to different writers to get different like additions to the story. So it wasn't like the whole thing. It wasn't like one morning he woke up and said, oh, a lady in the jungle, a giant gorilla.
A romance at sea.
Like, he didn't have that all in his head.
Yeah.
So basically, as it went through the years, it went to one writer who introduced like the island natives, who we'll get to, and the giant wall and the sacrificial maidens, like that idea. And then it went to a guy named James Creelman. And basically, he said, like, I need help. Now, another thing that's happening, too, there's so many people involved in this.
Yeah.
Marion C. Cooper was also going to co-direct this with a guy named Ernest B. Shedzak. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I am not 100% sure.
That's fine.
His wife, Ruth Rose, became the new screenwriter. She is one of the credited writers on this.
Gotcha.
And her big thing was changing those core 3 characters. So like Carl Denham, she actually changed to be based more on Marion C. Cooper.
Okay.
And I think that's a big reason why he's this kind of gray character. He's not just portrayed as a bad guy.
Right.
Because I think on the page, he's the bad guy.
Sure.
But in the context of the movie, he's not.
Right.
And I think that's because he's based on the director
Yeah.
of this movie.
That is fair.
She based Driscoll on her husband, Shedsack,
Okay, well, he's
the other director.
He's very manly and heroic, so that makes sense.
And she based Anne Darrow, who is played by Fay Wray, who is the homeless lady that Denham finds.
Yeah.
She based her on herself.
All right.
So he finds Anne Darrow,
Yes.
who is super hungry.
Very pretty.
Yes.
Very hungry.
hmm
And game to go on a boat with a bunch of men, which is really like his only criteria.
That's it. Well, and she's pretty.
And
He has
pretty.
2 criteria.
Yes.
Pretty and willing.
Pretty and willing.
hmm So they get on the boat. Did I miss anything so far?
I was just gonna ask, of all of those writers and story people that you mentioned, do we know who introduced the massive Beauty and the Beast foreshadowing? Because they say Beauty and the Beast so many times.
I can't remember who introduced that. I know it wasn't Cooper, though.
Okay.
I know that came later.
It's probably the lady.
So they get on this boat.
Yes.
And then they start sailing. And only Denham is the one who knows where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And because he has this map to an uncharted place called Skull Island.
Mhm.
Honestly, I can't even remember if he knows it's Skull Island. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
None of that matters.
Does not matter.
And a whole bunch of things happen on the ocean. One thing that happens is Anne falls in love with Jack. What did you think of like the love scenes on the boat between her and Jack?
I mean, this is the classic, right? Like the manly sailor doesn't want the woman on the boat.
And is an asshole to her.
But then she's so pretty and plucky and brave that suddenly he becomes a stuttering mess. And one night they're just together watching the sunset over the water. And he's like, whoa, well, gee, shucks, Anne, I sure think I might love you.
And she's into it.
She's into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great. He really turns around fast.
But then luckily, we as an audience don't have to deal with this subpar love story.
Yeah.
Because they find an island.
Yeah.
And on the island, here's the short version of what they find on the island. They find a tribe of people who have been there for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
They find a giant wall with a big gate in it, and there's something on the other side. Most of the island is on the other side of the wall, and it looks very, very old. And when they get there, they see that like this young girl is being dressed up in flowers as some kind of, oh, I don't know, what would you call it?
I mean, I would call it a virgin sacrifice.
That is 100% what it is. She is going to be given to something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you've glossed over something.
I've glossed over something. I didn't gloss over it. I was waiting, and then I was going to give you this platform to talk about it.
You've glossed over something. Can you describe the native people of this island? First of all, where are we given to understand this island is located?
In the Pacific?
Uh-huh.
No,
mhm.
no. It's in the Atlantic. It's in
Okay.
like the South Atlantic.
Got it. Can you describe the native peoples of this island?
They are portrayed in a very, very stereotypical and very racially insensitive depiction of African people.
Yes, I would agree with that.
It's not good. It ages very, very poorly.
It's not
bad.
good. It's
Like-
not good. It's like somewhere between Birth of a Nation and Gone with the Wind in terms of bad. How these poor people who probably like went to Juilliard and are classically trained are portrayed.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they all got paid,
Yeah.
which I don't know why I thought that made it
That
better.
doesn't make it better. I don't know why you would say that.
I feel bad about that.
And the other thing, too, is that given this as the source material, it was very interesting as we went kind of spanned the decades to see how the different versions dealt with this, shall we say, problem.
Like, this one was almost not the worst one.
It was not.
Well, we're going to get to that one
we're
in a
going to
little
get
bit.
to it. It'll
But-
be
but-
okay. So then what happens?
Okay, so they see that because everyone goes ashore, and these native peoples see this very pretty blonde lady, and they're like, "Oh, holy shit! Look at the golden woman!"
Yes.
And they leave, and they go back to the boat, and some of the natives go to the boat, and they capture her, and they bring her back, and they sacrifice her to Kong, and then Kong shows up, and the movie changes.
Yes.
Because everything up until this point has just been people interacting with people, and it was all on a very people-sized scale. And now suddenly it's a very different movie, and now it's all monsters and effects, and holy shit, a lot of people die.
Yes.
Because Kong is a giant gorilla who falls in love with Anne and takes her deep into the heart of the island, and all of her sailor buddies, including her new beau Jack, decide to go save her.
This is true. This is what happens. Yes.
And literally, it's so easy to describe from here on out. They do save her at the cost of massive loss of life.
This is so true.
Basically, Jack is the only one who survives from that party that goes out.
Jack and the director.
Well, the director doesn't go out.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the director stays
'Cause
behind.
he's a coward.
Because he's got a separate plan. He's not a coward, he just has a separate plan. Because while Jack is going to rescue Anne, Denham, his whole plan is, well, my movie's done at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture Kong, and I'm going to bring Kong back to the mainland. I'm going to bring him back to civilization.
Yes.
And that is indeed what happens.
To make some money off of him somehow.
I don't know if most people know this, but the movie King Kong ends with Kong at the top of the Empire State Building.
Yes.
Fighting airplanes.
Yes, that is correct.
Maybe that's not something people are aware of.
Well, the thing that I was not aware of, I have to say, is that I was aware that there was a scene on Skull Island where they go to get Kong.
Yeah.
And I was aware that he made it back to New York, obviously.
Yes.
Because of the classic, 'Twas Beauty Killed the Beast or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that scene with him in the theater before. I was not aware that there's no transition whatsoever between those two locations.
That was Ruth Rose. That was another thing she did. There was originally stuff in the script where they were like, we got to figure out how to get him on the boat. And it's super dumb and boring.
I literally assumed there would be at least 15 to 20 minutes of how they got him on the boat.
Nope. They gas him, knock him out, and then we cut to Broadway with Kong, the eighth wonder of the world, in big lights.
Yes, this is what happened.
It's one of my favorite transitions in movie history.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
So in as much as there's no transition.
And that is what makes it so beautiful. That's the thing about this movie that I love. This movie is all about one thing, and it's momentum. The movie is slow, and then the minute Kong shows up, it's just momentum all the way from that minute all the way to the end.
Yeah, because if they stop moving, you're going to think too hard about how bad the gorilla looks.
Or anything.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And this is another thing that I think is important to say.
Okay.
He looked fucking amazing in 1933. We are not the people who are going to analyze the history of special effects.
No.
Suffice it to say, the special effects in this movie are groundbreaking and were amazing for the time.
Yeah, there is a scene where he kills a dinosaur very graphically by ripping its jaw off, kind of. And I would say, I think every other version paid homage to that scene.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that was so classic that they were like, well, we have to leave this in. My final note for this movie, once they got to New York, I didn't even take any notes because I was like, oh, I've seen this before. But my final note was kind of disturbing seeing animals die, which was just terrible foreshadowing because
just wait.
It gets worse. It gets worse as we go down the decades.
No, I think that's another, and there's one other name that I do want to mention as far as people who made this movie, and that's Willis O'Brien. Is that a name that you are familiar with?
It is not.
He's basically the father of stop motion animation.
Gotcha.
He was the person who was in charge of all the effects.
Mm-hmm.
He was the creator of Kong. He was the animator. His protege was Ray Harryhausen, who went on to do some of the most amazing stop motion in any movies.
Gotcha.
So Seven Voyages of Sinbad, and with the fighting the skeletons and the Kraken, the original Kraken.
This is a thing you're more familiar with than I am.
They're great.
I believe you.
But the one thing I want to say about Willis O'Brien is, and the thing that I think that makes Kong so great as a character, is how much character he brought to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about that fight where he kills the dinosaur. There's this one little move that he does, and this is what everyone pays homage to. He does kill the creature, and it was part by snapping his jaw. But then when he's done and the Tyrannosaurus is dead, he's basically just starts kind of playing with the jaw and moving it up and down.
Yeah.
Which is not that's not a thing they needed to have at all.
Right.
All it does is show personality
right.
in Kong, that he's this curious creature. I think it's amazing. It's one of the best moments in the movie, and I think there's a reason why it has kind of stuck in so many people's minds who have gone on to remake it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we've seen it seen it multiple
Yeah,
times.
that makes sense.
So they go back to New York, and then blah blah blah. Kong escapes, and he gets Anne, and he brings her up to the top of the Empire State Building, and then they remember, oh wait, we've got airplanes, and then airplanes attack him and shoot him, and then he falls, and then someone goes up to Denham, who's standing by the body, and says, it was the airplanes that got him, and then Denham says, no, it wasn't the airplanes, it was beauty killed the beast.
On anyone's top 50 movie lines of all time, only because it's very famous, you will find this line.
Yes.
Especially like ending lines.
Oh, it's a classic.
A classic.
It's a classic.
A classic. I guess I just didn't realize like that was not the first mention of Beauty and the Beast in the movie. Do you know what I mean? There was a great deal of Beauty and the Beast foreshadowing that led us to this moment.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where if you're judging them by how well they foreshadow the line, then yes, it's incredibly successful as a last line.
Yeah.
I still question how successful the entire metaphor is at all.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, this is going to sound dumb and maybe I'm missing the point. It was the airplanes that got him.
It was literally the airplanes that got him.
I don't understand. Like, I get that this is the metaphor that they're going for, but if you are... it just doesn't make any sense to me that is anything he would say at the end.
He's not that romantic of a guy. He didn't even want a chick in his film.
A dame.
A dame.
A dame.
Yes.
Just a pretty dame.
Yeah, no.
He didn't want that.
He didn't want it. Okay, so we've been making a lot of fun here today. But in all seriousness, why do you love this movie?
I already mentioned the momentum. I love this movie because of how pure it is as an adventure story. It is, we are going to show people things they have never seen in a way they've never seen it. We are going to amaze people. And like the human characters, they are not the point of this story. They are dimensional enough that they're a little interesting, but that's not why people love this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people love this movie because Anne Darrow is drawn as a character so well. She's not. Right?
No, she's not.
But this movie shows people things they've never seen before and is historic for that fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think it works as just pure entertainment. I still think it works.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an incredibly just tight movie.
Yeah.
I feel like it's this blueprint for all of these giant blockbusters that we see now, where you just need to have all the characters are characters. Like, I don't think any of the characters are boring. They're all interesting in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
There's something compelling about all of them, even though you're not making these like dramatic connections to any of them. That you remember all the characters because they're so clearly drawn against each other.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful movie that again, historically problematic.
Yes.
I'm not lying, it is problematic.
But also historically significant for all the
Incredibly.
ways that you just described.
Incredibly. And I think the vast majority of filmmakers, many of whom would go on to remake it, really have a soft spot in their heart
Yeah,
for Kong.
I agree.
Now, I know you want to move on to 1976.
I mean, for some definition of want, yes.
Okay. There is something that is important to mention now.
Okay.
In 1962, Kong made his next appearance on film.
Oh, we didn't watch that.
We didn't. And this was King Kong versus Godzilla.
Okay.
And we didn't watch it because it really didn't have anything to do with King Kong other than it was a giant gorilla.
Right.
Because this was Toho Studios doing a sequel to Godzilla, which we have done on this show.
We did Godzilla.
It was the same people that made it. Ishiro Honda directed this as well. And it was a big man in a suit playing Kong fighting Godzilla. And I think I looked into it. It didn't have enough of Kong there for me to really consider it an adaptation. So we did not watch it for this show.
Yeah.
It's important to mention here now because it is going to come up later because there's something that we did watch that's very related to it.
Yes.
But I wanted to mention it.
Thank you for mentioning it. While we are in this sort of interstitial mode, can I mention a fact that I learned about gorillas?
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what? So all the gorillas, to a gorilla in all the movies that we watched, they are very bloodthirsty.
Yes, they are. They eat people.
They do eat people and
They're also very big. They eat people.
And dinosaurs and squids and all kinds of things.
I'm making the assumption that like 20% of a gorilla's diet is a T-Rex.
Yeah. So gorillas are omnivores. That is
Okay.
true. That's correct.
So that means they eat plants and people.
They eat plants and so they eat mostly plants.
Okay.
And when they're not eating, they eat like plants and fruit and branches, I guess. And termites.
They eat bugs.
They eat bugs.
You're telling me they eat bugs.
They eat really little bugs. They do not eat the flesh of any animal. They only eat bugs and
my whole childhood was a lie.
Yeah.
Fuck this movie.
Yes.
Stupid movie.
They
lying to me.
like a gorilla could kill a person for sure.
Oh yeah, totally.
100%. But what I'm trying to say is they absolutely are dangerous animals that could easily kill a human being, and I'm sure have, but they would not eat the human being. They do not eat flesh.
Well, that is good to know.
Yes, I guess it's good to know if you ever want to stray into places where gorillas live. At least you know you won't get eaten. Let's move on. So in 1976, we have a movie starring friend of the pod, your friend and mine, Jeff Bridges, as well as introducing Jessica Lange
Mm-hmm.
in her first, I believe, film role.
This is her very first screen role.
Her first screen role. And for some reason, they decided to make this movie, and they decided to set it in modern day.
Modern day for the time.
For the time. So
Mhm.
so we're in 1976. And as the credits started to roll, I just turned to you and said, God, we watch a lot of movies about manly men doing manly things. Because there's not a woman in this movie except for Jessica Lange.
There are some native women.
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
there's one thing that does happen in every King Kong movie. At some point when he's on the mainland,
Yeah.
he picks up a lady because he thinks it's Anne, or in this case, we'll get to her name in a second.
Yeah.
Because he thinks it's the beauty,
and then-
he's like, oh no, fuck this one, and just tosses her.
flings her. Yeah, Jeremy has a lot of sympathy for this poor woman in every single version that gets flung. And in one version, I think he does it like 3 or 4 times.
She is like the most in the original. She to me is the most compelling character that doesn't get any lines.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to her every single time I watch it because she wasn't doing anything.
not her fault.
She was just in her apartment, and this giant gorilla picked her out and just threw her to the ground. It's awful.
It's very
just
bad.
awful. But we need. I do want to back up for 1 second
Okay.
because you've mentioned some people who were in this movie.
Yes.
I want to talk about some people who made this movie.
Okay.
I want to talk about one person in particular, a man who some may know as hubris incarnate,
Oh, God.
Dino De Laurentiis,
Oh, my God.
who is just an amazing character. And if anyone thought I am gonna make a King Kong movie that bests the original, it was Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah, because this was a theatrical release, right? This wasn't like a
Yes.
TV movie or anything.
It was gonna be. There
Was it?
Well, Michael Eisner was at ABC at the time,
Oh, boy.
and he wanted it. And so basically, Dino De Laurentiis and Michael Eisner got into a big fight about it.
Oh, good.
And Dino De Laurentiis got it. That is a drastic oversimplification of what happened.
Gotcha.
But he is just a crazy person who thought that he was going to do a good movie with a big beefy boy, and he. Well, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
It was directed by a guy named John Gillerman, who was he directed a lot of like 70s disaster movies
Okay.
type things.
All right.
And it was written
Well,
by
this movie was a disaster,
Yep.
so
it was written by Lorenzo Semple Jr. All of that out of the way.
great.
Do you? Oh God, where do we start with? Because I never saw it. I had
Right.
never seen this one. I'd always just kind of heard about it.
So let's just start with the sort of the basic premise.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit different from the original.
Yeah, just a little.
So they're all on the ship. Can you explain what they're all doing there?
So they are, they being a whole bunch of employees of the Petrox Oil Company.
Yes.
They are
Very important.
being led by a guy named Fred Wilson, played by Charles Grodin,
Like you do.
playing the bad guy, like an overt bad guy.
Oh, he's so bad. He's like getting a massage while people are getting eaten. Like he's ridiculous.
It's a whole thing, but he's like a bad guy that's not threatening at all.
No, because he's
just
Charles Grodin.
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it. So he's leading everything, and the ship leaves port, but they have a stowaway. They have a stowaway named Jack Prescott, and that is Jeff Bridges.
Looking handsome.
Looking very, I don't know, his mustache is all kind of weird.
Yeah, he's got weird hair in this movie.
Something about it. He's a hippie.
Yeah.
And basically in the middle of a scene where Fred Wilson is leading a meeting with all of his Petrox chemical dudes, they're all on Petrox Corporation. They're all on the ship. And he's leading this thing. He's saying, here's where we're going. We're going to this island. I just found out about it. There may be a whole shitload of oil there. Suddenly Jeff Bridges is in the room and he goes, yeah, here's some bullshit about conservation, because that's what is on everybody's
he's like,
mind.
He's like a graduate student of some kind.
And,
I
like,
don't know.
Literally a stowaway, but instead of doing anything to him, like putting him in the brig, which it is my understanding that every boat larger than a sailboat has a brig.
He puts him in the brig for a short time, but
Yeah.
then he lets him out.
And then he hires him to be their photographer.
Yes.
Because he's an anthropologist, and that's the deal they make.
He's
he says,
multi-talented.
let me see. I mean, he basically knows everything. He's an incredibly knowledgeable character.
Yes.
And that makes him, to me, very boring.
Yes, he's not very interesting. So in the midst of all this is the part I want to talk about. They see a lifeboat. There's a lifeboat
Yeah.
at sea. And who should be in the bottom of this lifeboat but a beautiful woman, unconscious,
Yep.
who
But with a lot of clothes on, right?
she has like a very flowy, strappy sort of bathing suit cover up on.
And she's been at sea for days, right?
Well, you would be forgiven for thinking she had literally put to sea moments before because she looks great. And she also definitely like took her hairdryer along with her in her life raft.
But she's like super sunburned because she's been out on the water
no,
forever.
she's blonde. She's pale. As I say, she's been out on the water for probably 5 minutes. You could probably see her craft. They could have probably returned her to her craft.
Had her craft not blown up,
Right, that's right. Her craft
as
did
we
blow up.
find out.
And they rescue her. She's all dewy-eyed and dewy-lipped, and she just looks great. She just looks very, like, half naked, but great. And I literally was just writing down notes like, get her she's wet. Like, get her a towel. No one ever gets her a towel. No one ever gets her a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
But they make her, like, go to bed and, like, tell her story.
Someone tries to molest her in her sleep
Yeah.
because he says, I gotta check to make sure her vitals are okay.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, we see what you're doing. And it's a very charming scene, except it's super, super fucking
Yeah,
problematic.
and it turns out she was on this boat that exploded. Unclear why, because she was there to maybe be someone's sort of sex partner ingenue, but they were watching a porn and she didn't want to watch the porn. So she was not in the movie room when it exploded. Very unclear.
Okay, I want to say there's two really important pieces of information that I think we need to talk about with this character. One really matters, the other one doesn't, but the one that doesn't is fucking stupid, so we need to talk about
Okay.
it. Let's talk about that one first.
Okay.
Do
Is
you
it
know-
her? Is it her name?
It is her goddamn name.
I don't understand. I don't understand. They continually say her name throughout the movie with a straight face as if it is a real thing. I don't get it. It makes the entire movie at least 15% stupider.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty stupid to begin with.
It was 16%. It was at 16% smart.
Yeah.
And then we found out what the character's name is.
Do you want to say what her name is?
Her name is Dwan. It's Dwan. It's like Dawn, D-A-W-N, but she switched the letters, to be unique.
In the credits, her name is Dwan.
Now, everyone gets a last name. Dwan does not.
No, her name is just Dwan.
Doesn't matter.
D-W-A-N. That is the character's name, Dwan.
And I get that the people who were making this movie said, we need to do something memorable and interesting. They succeeded at 50% of that. It's not memorable. It's not interesting.
No.
It's stupid.
It's so stupid.
It's really stupid, and stupid can be interesting. That's a thing that
I
can
guess,
happen.
yeah.
It's not here.
No.
So that's important to talk about.
Okay.
The second thing, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is Anne's motivation in the original King Kong? What is the thing she wants? What is the thing that gets her on the boat?
Oh, well, she's very hungry.
That's it. Literally, that is it.
Yeah.
She is starving because it is the Depression, and someone says, I am going to do something for you that is going to mean that you're not going to go hungry.
Right.
And she is then asked to do many things that are fucking crazy, but she does them. Why does she do them? Because
Hungry.
she is hungry. She doesn't want to die.
Right.
Okay. What does Dwan want? What is her desire? Why does she do the things that she does?
It's extremely unclear. Because I imagine at some point she would like to be returned to her home, but she definitely does not express that wish. She just
No.
seems happy to be where she is.
Because she wants to be famous.
Oh, right. She wants to be a star, an indeterminate star. We're not quite sure of what.
Yeah, she just wants to be famous.
Yes.
That's it.
That's
she doesn't
right.
want to do anything. She just wants to be famous.
That's right.
So there's the implication that she was on the boat because she's going to model or do a movie or something.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, but that's what she wants. Which to you is more compelling and interesting?
Hungry.
Right? It's much simpler and it's much more basic, but it just matters so much more. Dwan fucking sucks.
Although I will say of Dwan, she is both figuratively and literally thirsty because they never give her a goddamn glass of water.
Not once.
Not even once.
Oh, we spent so much time on this bullshit.
Okay, let's keep going.
There is one other person I want to mention really quickly who's on the boat with them, and that is Roy. That is Fred Wilson, Charles Grodin's like second in command, who is played by Rene Auberjonois of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
He's Odo.
And MASH. He's in many different things, and he's always a delight every time he shows up. And you know what? He's super fun in this movie.
He's fine. He's great.
He's super fun because he goes back and forth constantly between being like scared for his job and also not giving a shit about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, spoiler alert, they get to the island and they find out, yeah, there's oil, but it like isn't ready yet.
Right.
Like, it still needs to cook for 5,000 more years, as he puts it.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So their whole mission was in vain. And he's very gleeful about it.
Super gleeful. He's basically saying to Charles Grodin, like, this was your idea. You're fucked, buddy. You are shit out of luck. But, like, this is his job, too. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So they get to the island.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say about this movie is beautiful. Like, the movie's shot, it's a competently shot movie. And the island they go to is very, very pretty. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Like
I mean, it was clearly shot on location at some sort of real island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's clear, like, they spared no expense.
Yes.
Except when we talk about Kong. But we haven't gotten there yet.
No.
So they get there. There is a wall. There are native peoples. Hi, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in superficially, would you say that these native peoples are like wildly different than the native peoples in the first one?
No, they're not wildly different.
They're basically the same.
Yes.
Which a couple things are bullshit about that. One, they're in like the South Pacific,
Yeah.
which and everyone is still African.
Yeah.
Here's my big question though.
Yeah.
They are so similar.
Yes.
Who's more problematic? The native peoples in the original, who we have already said are very problematic, or the native peoples in this one?
This one.
Why?
Because it's 40 years later.
Yep.
Why do we not know better?
I think this is Dino De Laurentiis not giving a shit.
Yeah, I literally wrote, this is my note. This is my TED Talk for the episode. I don't even have the TED Talk. I just have the note. I wrote female/black bodies objectified/fetishized.
Yeah. This movie
That's
loves...
my term paper.
This movie loves the African form.
Oh, yes.
Loves it. Just the glistening African form with
God,
no...
don't say glistening African form.
The glistening, moist African form.
Oh, my God.
With no motivation, no character, no dialogue, no nothing. They are just... they are meat.
Please, nobody take this out of context.
They are meat. It is... awful.
It's not
because
good.
as you say, it's 40 years later and we could do better.
Yeah.
Like there's another movie.
What year did Roots come out?
I know, right?
Right?
There's another movie that we're going to talk about in a few minutes that references this in a way where they acknowledge that the original movie was bullshit.
Yeah.
And that this is bad, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So they find all of these people, and the same thing is happening. They're gonna sacrifice a girl to Kong, but then they see the lady with the blonde hair, and they're like, "Oh, her, please. Yes, we'll take one.
One Dwan, please.
Yes, one Dwan. Her name's Dwan.
That's
we'll take
a dumb
her.
name.
We'll take her anyway. Her name's fucking stupid, but we'll take her anyway. We're sure Kong doesn't care." And like they go back to the boat, and then the natives, they come and they steal her off the boat, and they take her back, and they give her to Kong. What is her reaction to all of this, by the way, as they're doing it?
So what I wrote down is, are we to understand she has lost her mind?
Yeah. Like, it seems like they drug her, but there's no indication that they have.
No, and then she just starts trying to have a conversation with Kong.
Oh my God, you're skipping ahead.
Okay.
You're skipping ahead.
But I guess all I'm saying is I would not judge her for thinking Kong was just a man in a suit, which is why she could have a conversation with him.
Oh, he's very big.
Because he looks really bad.
He's very big. I want to say this too. Like, Jessica Lange, would you say she's a good actress?
In this?
No, in general. Like, is Jessica Lange someone you think is a good actor?
I think she's widely regarded as being a good actor.
Right. This is the first time she ever did any acting on the screen.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yes.
Also, I'm sure the direction was not there for her and the writing is not there for her.
No, it's not.
So, okay, you're already getting to Kong. So let's get to Kong.
Yep.
Kong shows up. He is no longer stop motion.
He's a man in a suit.
He is a man in a suit. Where, like 14 years before, Toho did the same thing. Put a man in the suit, had him fight another man in a suit dressed up as another big beefy boy named Godzilla.
Mhm.
And he takes her.
Well, you explained to me
Yes.
a technical movie making reason why this looked so bad.
Oh,
And
yes.
I would love you to explain it to our listeners because I actually thought it was super interesting.
Okay, so if you are going to shoot anything, like if you're messing with scale in a movie, so let's say you're shooting a miniature and you want, when people are watching it, you want them to think it's very, very big. Or you're shooting big and you want to make something look very, very small. You need to actually change the speed at which you're shooting because big things move slower than small things. The reason they do that is because they're very big and heavy and also they have further to travel, right?
I mean, that makes sense.
Like if I take a step, I can take a step very quickly. But if I'm 100 feet tall and I take a step, like the step I'm taking is much longer, so it's slower. This is just how this works. And many people who have done special effects have figured this out. This movie ignores that, basically. So Kong is a guy in a suit, and he always looks like a guy in a suit just bouncing around a soundstage.
Yes.
And it doesn't work.
Right.
Like, even a little.
Right.
Like, even a little. By the way, quick thing. I mentioned before Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen. These are like legends in special effects. The guy in the suit is Rick Baker. Do you know Rick Baker?
No.
Rick Baker won the very first Academy Award ever given for makeup
Oh.
in a movie, and it was for An American Werewolf in London.
Huh.
He did like the whole, do you know the transformation scene in American Werewolf in London?
I know.
You would hate it. You
Great.
would hate it. It's very gross and it's amazing. He also was the guy who created all the makeup for Harry and the Hendersons.
Okay.
That might make sense because I think there's a lot of Kong in Harry,
Okay. Yeah, no, I can see it.
but that is a very good movie.
Yes.
He also did the werewolf costume for Michael Jackson in the Thriller video.
Gotcha.
Rick Baker is a legend. He's won many Oscars. This was like one of his first things. He's the guy in the suit.
Gotcha.
I think it's worth mentioning. I am a fan of him. So we meet Kong. Can I read my note about Kong? This is literally my only note about Kong the character.
Yes, please do.
I hate Kong's face. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. I hate it. Could you... like, it's the most unsettling thing I have ever seen in my life.
It's awful.
I hate it so much.
Well, it's because it's like Uncanny Valley. Like it's almost too much like a person.
It looks like something out of Disney, like the Hall of Presidents or something like that.
Well, Hall of Presidents is freaky because it's very Uncanny Valley. Like
Right.
it's too close for comfort, but not close enough to be good.
Like, and that's the thing about Kong in the original. Like, Kong in the original doesn't move like a person.
Yeah.
Because he's stop motion. Like, nothing looks like that. So I think it's much easier to suspend your disbelief when you're seeing something you've never seen before. Whereas, like, most of us have experienced Halloween.
Yeah.
Most of us have experienced our friends in a costume.
Right.
We've seen this before. It's a guy in a costume, and it would be an amazing Halloween costume.
Sure.
If your friend showed up at a party and this was his
You'd
Halloween
be like,
costume,
dude, where'd you get that gorilla costume? You
shut
look-
the fuck up. You
It's
made an
great.
amazing costume. It's so good. The eyes move and the mouth moves and everything like that. But you're not gauging about how realistic it is.
Right. Because
But-
you know it's a guy in a suit.
But in a movie, we are gauging how realistic it is.
Right.
It is not realistic.
It is not.
And he then takes her and they go into the island.
And she has a bunch of conversations with him, and it's very weird. And then Jeff Bridges comes and saves her
Like,
from the clutches of Kong.
it's just so dumb. They didn't do any of there's no dinosaurs on this island.
Hmm.
Like, they take away, like, I love that Dino De Laurentiis' whole thing is we're going to do something bigger than the original. We're also going to remove all the fun stuff from it.
Yeah.
That's actually, you know what? I want to talk about this for a second.
Okay.
This movie is not fun.
No.
Like, it's big and it's dramatic, but it's never fun and it's never exciting. I don't think that's a hot take.
Yeah. No.
And I want to bring up one example of that, and it's the music.
Okay.
So I want to talk. Is it okay if I talk about the music for a second?
Yeah, please.
The music in this movie is bad, and it's bad. Sorry, it's bad for one big reason, which is that it's always very beautiful and it's always very slow. There's like a love theme that is like repeated throughout the entire movie, but the tempo of the music never goes up. It's never up tempo.
Right. I do remember this now that you're talking about it. We talked about it at the time.
Yeah.
It was like, it's like scary music, but it's not like fast adventure music. It's always like very slow.
Yeah. It's never doing anything to make you excited.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate that. And I think like the movie, like I mentioned, the first one has momentum. This one has no momentum.
Yeah. Well, actually, I have an example of the movie not having momentum.
Yes, please.
So you talk about the momentum of the first movie, the 1933 one. It just like clip, 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 clip along.
Yep.
Like we're going, we're advancing the plot.
Yes.
This movie, okay, so Dwan, I can't even say it. Dwan is saved from Kong. They're all back on the ship. And they get back on the ship and she goes right back into this whole like reminiscence of this guy that she was on this other boat with.
Yeah.
And like talking about how I heard where she's like, he was going to get me a booking. And I'm like, a booking of what? What does she do? Suddenly she's naming all these ballet dancers. I'm like, is he a ballet producer? Are you a ballet dancer? But like, this is not what I should be concerned about 3/4 of the way through a King Kong movie.
You might almost ask, what does this have to do with the gorilla?
Nothing is the answer.
Nothing.
Now she and Jeff Bridges do bone. I feel like this is the only one we saw where someone actually does end up boning down.
Bone down, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like implied.
There's some implied boning. Oh no, I'm sorry. The 2017 one, there's boning.
That's
Sorry, the 2005 one.
Oh, well, and that's also, yeah, you know what, I agree with you. It is implied, but I also agree with you.
Yeah. And I literally don't know when I wrote this, but my next note is, well, this is in bad taste. And I guess you could just say that about the whole movie. I have no idea what specifically I was referencing.
Was it how violent the movie is?
I think it was about... Oh, I remember. So they get him back to New York, and rather than exhibiting him in a Broadway theater, they're exhibiting him at like a sports stadium, and people are selling like hot dogs and peanuts and popcorn.
Because, by the way, he's the new mascot for Petrox Corporation.
Right. And that was, I think, when I wrote, well, this is in bad taste.
Like, that's Charles Grodin's big way to save this whole mission, is there's no oil,
right?
But maybe they have a new mascot who is a giant gorilla?
Right. So then they reveal him, and he looks like the centerpiece of a rainforest cafe. Like, he just looks... terrible.
And they do the thing that's such bullshit where they're constantly cutting back and forth between the close-up of Kong and like the wide shot.
Yeah.
And it's clearly like the close-up is clearly Rick Baker in a suit and the wide shot is clearly a giant mannequin that doesn't move.
Right.
But they're cutting back and forth in the same shot.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work.
And like, it goes without saying, havoc is wreaked.
Okay, so let me try to get us to the end really quickly.
Yeah.
Kong escapes because of course he does. He then steps on Charles Grodin, and that's how he meets his grisly end. It's fucking stupid. It's so dumb. Then he like escapes into New York, and the army is there. And Jeff Bridges and Dwan go to like a bar.
Yeah,
and
like a dive bar, but no one's there.
Well, it's like a classy kind of bar, right?
No, I think it's a dive.
Well, anyway, they go to this bar, which is, by the way, inside.
Yeah.
Kong finds them.
Somehow.
And he takes Dwan while Jeff Bridges is like peeing or on the phone or something like that. And he comes back and he's like, oh my God, she's gone and the window's broken. It must have been Kong. And he goes out.
And the place smells like gorilla for some reason.
How do you think Kong smells?
So bad.
What do you think is the worst? Do you think it's
his breath? His breath.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
So then Jeff Bridges goes out. Now he's an anthropologist and he likes animals. He knows a whole bunch of things. Now he remembers when they were at the island that Kong lived up on like the top of the mountain where there's these two giant pillars going up, pillars of rock. And that's where Kong lives. So here's the deal. It's 1976 in New York City. And he looks around going like, where's Kong going to go? Where's he going to go that's familiar?
To be fair, they weren't to know.
No, of course they weren't to know. But, of course, if they have to outdo the original, and in the original he climbs up the Empire State Building, the tallest building in New York, what does he climb up in 1976?
He climbs up the World Trade Center.
Sure does. And he like jumps from one tower to the other, and it's a whole thing, and it's very exciting. And yes, of course that means watching it is like sad now.
The filmmakers could not be blamed for not seeing into the future and knowing this would not age well.
I do not blame them at all.
Yeah.
I blame them for what happens at the top of the tower.
So explain.
At the top of the tower, Kong, like, Dwan is kind of sympathetic towards him.
Yeah.
But not outright. Basically, Dwan and Jeff Bridges are both really sympathetic towards Kong.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges especially, because he's a man of science, and this is a wild animal, and they shouldn't be killing him. They need to protect him and get him back to his island and get him back to his natural habitat.
Yes.
Right? That is not what happens. Instead, a bunch of helicopters shoot the shit out of him.
Oh yeah, it's really gross.
Really bloody, really disgusting. Like you see this gorilla's body ripped apart by bullets.
It's awful, actually.
Yeah, and it's like top 5 times that I think you've been really uncomfortable while we've been watching something.
I really, really have a problem seeing animals get hurt. I really don't like it. I did not realize how many times in all of these movies I would have to watch animals meet a bloody death, but I did not enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm very sorry.
It's okay.
I'd never seen it. I didn't know.
You won't.
And then he falls and he's dead, and there's a crowd of people, and that is the end of the movie.
And Juan looks worse than she was when she was lost at sea.
Now, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, do you think that this was better than the original?
No.
Okay. What are your thoughts as to why? Why would you say it is not better than the original?
Because it, as you say, the original was at least original. It was a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
It was technology that hadn't been seen before. It was interesting. It had some pacing. It had some movie making skill
Mm-hmm.
involved. This was basically the Sharknado of its time.
Essentially.
But let me tell you, I've seen Sharknado. Sharknado's at least entertaining.
Yeah.
This was not even fun to watch.
This was a bunch of people thinking they were making something really important.
Yes.
And they were not.
Yeah.
I know. I really like the fact that you touched on the special effects, because to me, there's like 2 big ways where this fails, where the original succeeds. One, this movie doesn't do anything new with special effects. Like the whole idea of King Kong, and the thing that made it so great is it was showing people something they'd never seen before. And this was just a guy in a suit and then really bad like superimposition of actors on like a green screen.
Yeah.
Like that's all it was. So that doesn't work. And the other thing the original has going for it is pacing and momentum. And this movie also doesn't have that going for it. So it kind of fails on both counts.
Yeah.
It fails at the thing that made Kong great, and it fails at the thing that made Kong watchable.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So
So it was a failure.
this movie's terrible.
It's really bad.
I hated it.
Let's move on.
Okay, then in 2005, a new movie came out, a new version of King Kong. This one directed by Peter Jackson. Peter Lord of the Rings Jackson.
Mhm.
A couple things I want to say about the history of this really quickly. He actually tried to make this movie in like 1997.
Okay.
Like he was trying to make this before The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
They had a script. The script was like wildly different than the original, and the financing never really came together.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then he went ahead and made Lord of the Rings, so
Yes.
then he could make any. This was like literally what he made immediately after Lord of the Rings at a point in his career where he could have done any project in the entire world that
Yes.
he wanted to.
Yeah. And like the crew of Lord of the Rings didn't even stop. They just continued production, except now it was King Kong that they were producing.
Right.
I have one just last little thing to say about why it didn't happen, why his original version didn't happen.
Why?
Because in 1997, here are 3 movies that were in production and slated to come out. Godzilla,
Uh-huh.
Mighty Joe Young, which
Yep.
was a remake, and Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Okay, so a lot of gorilla movies that year.
A lot of gorilla and monster movies, and the studio said, but maybe not King Kong.
Maybe
not.
later. Maybe in 8 years.
Yeah, maybe. Here's the deal: go make $1 billion trilogy, and then we'll talk about you doing King Kong.
And he was like, cool,
And
I
he
will
was
do
like,
that.
"Well, all right, I'll do that."
Was that you trying to do his accent?
I mean, that's like
New
I
Zealand
wasn't-
accent is really hard.
It's super, super hard. The only thing I know how to say with a New Zealand accent is the name Brett.
Brit.
Brit. That's it. That's all I have.
Brit.
Okay, so they made this movie.
Yes.
So it was directed by Peter Jackson. It was a screenplay by Peter Jackson, his wife Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, all of whom are the writers of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yep.
And like literally almost everyone else from Lord of the Rings made this movie. What should we talk about? Should we talk about the cast of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the cast is actually pretty relevant because what Peter Jackson chose to do was set this all the way back in 1933, like as if it were the original. Peter Jackson clearly loved not to spoil our quadrants, but Peter Jackson clearly loved the original.
Loves it so
Loves
much.
it so much.
Which I can appreciate.
You can also see he loves Jurassic Park in this movie, by the way. You can
Well,
see that too.
Can we talk about Jurassic Park for a
Yeah,
second?
sure.
I'm really glad that you brought up Jurassic Park because, like, what did we just say? Like, the things that were great about the original Kong were that it showed people something they'd never seen before and it had amazing momentum.
Yes.
Had a great pace.
Yes.
The 1976 version it has neither of those things. Jurassic Park has both of those things.
Yes.
Like, it literally has something that no one had ever seen before.
Yeah.
And it's just a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a super, super fun blockbuster. It's weird to say this, but in a lot of ways, people keep trying to remake King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think the best spiritual successor to King Kong is Jurassic Park.
Yo, for sure.
And of
Yeah.
course, Jurassic Park references King Kong.
Right.
And then maybe a later one also references Jurassic Park. It's a whole thing.
It's just like a snake eating its own tail.
Like, I would hold Jurassic Park up there with King Kong. It couldn't have happened without King Kong, but it is amazing.
Right.
So now we have this version,
Yeah.
which definitely owes a lot to movies that have come before.
Right. So as I was saying, like, because he's doing sort of a direct homage to the original, obviously we're setting it in the 30s
Yep.
in New York.
Yes.
So these are basically all American characters.
Yes.
There's like not one American in this movie. There's like two.
Well, it's Adrian Brody
Brody and Jack Black.
Yeah.
The rest of them, the accents are quite variable.
Colin Hanks. Colin Hanks is an American.
That's fair enough. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah, he's the son of an American legend.
I'm really talking about Naomi Watts.
Yeah. Yes.
And all of the like film dudes at the beginning are clearly from New Zealand.
Well, that's the thing. Like, some of the leads are American because these are the people that they could pay enough to come down to New Zealand.
That's right.
But like, you're not going to pay extras or bit players to come down from like to New Zealand to do this.
Yeah.
You're going to get New Zealanders or Aussies, and you're going to have them do an American accent.
Yeah, and like to be fair, like that when I lived in England for a year, that's the only reason I ever got cast in anything because they love American plays over there, or at least they did, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I got cast in a bunch of stuff where the casting notice was like, must be able to do believable American accent, and I was like, I think I can.
Can I hear you? Can you do something for me?
Yeah.
What is your American accent as spoken by someone who is suddenly too aware of their own American accent?
I can't do it.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I am
from Massachusetts.
I am from Massachusetts. This is what I'm doing for my American accent.
You just sound like a robot.
So he gets these people. Let's run through the characters really quickly.
Yes.
I would love to talk about like how they are different from the original and maybe what the actor brings to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be great.
So we should start with who is now our new main character.
Mm-hmm.
This person, who is the main character of this movie?
Jack Black.
And that's so fascinating because that's not what I expected you to say.
Oh, I guess it's Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Anne.
Okay.
She, like, of the main characters,
She definitely goes on a journey.
she is the first person we meet.
Okay.
Whereas, like, of the main characters in the original, she's the last of the three that we meet.
Yeah, that's fair.
But we meet her first.
Yes.
How have they changed the character of Anne Darrow from the original?
Well, she is still starving,
Yes, as is everybody.
as is everybody, but she has a job
Yeah.
until she doesn't. And she is a comedy actress. She really wants to be in comedies.
She's in vaudeville.
Yeah, she's in vaudeville, but she wants to be in like funny plays. And there's this particular playwright that she admires very much
Yeah.
that she wants to be in his plays.
Mhm. And that is important.
It is important.
But she's like, she's an actress.
Yeah.
She literally is an actress. She knows what she wants. She knows the type of acting that she wants to do.
Mhm.
And she is like suddenly the first time that the beauty gets to be the main character in a King Kong movie,
Mhm.
which I think is important.
Yeah, yeah.
How is Naomi Watts in this?
She's fine. She's very pretty.
She's very pretty.
She's very pretty.
I would say she is very good in this.
She's good.
What is the one thing that is holding you back a little bit?
Her accent.
It's fine.
It's okay.
It's fine. It's not amazing.
It's okay. I think she's honestly, like, as you say, she's the main character. Fine. She's a little underwritten. Like, don't you agree?
Would you say the female part's a little underwritten
It is
in this?
a little underwritten.
I disagree only in that she's been the best written version of this character so far, and I think by a really, really wide margin.
Right.
So are you judging this against like good writing in other good movies, or are you judging it against the first two?
No, I'm judging it against what they were trying to do.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is make her the main character.
Okay.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't judge her against Dwan because they weren't trying to make Dwan a well-rounded character.
No.
But I don't know. I don't think she does a lot of things, but I don't know that she has a lot of inner life. That's for me.
So if what you're saying is that there's something kind of superficial about the character,
Yes.
then I would agree with you.
Ooh.
And I think that's something that comes up a lot in this movie.
Gotcha.
So then we move on to Carl Denham, who is played by Jack Black.
Right. So what would you say are the similarities or differences between Carl Denham in this movie and in the 1933 version?
I think this movie is way more willing to have him be the antagonist than the original did.
Oh yeah,
Like
for sure.
this Carl is like he is a shitty character.
Yeah.
He really is. He's like charming and compelling, but he like is actively doing things to hurt people throughout the movie and actively doing things and not caring about people and getting people killed. He's absolutely an antagonist in this movie.
And how would you say his performance is, Jack Black, as this character?
I've never felt like he did as good a job as he could have in this. I think the production to me feels a little bit rushed. I don't feel like they took the time to really develop their characters. And
Well, I don't know that like Peter Jackson is necessarily like an actor's director. It seems like he's really good at telling a story, but I don't know that he like really gets in the head of his actors and directs them, directs their acting. And the reason I know this is because I've seen all the documentaries for Lord of the Rings, so I feel like I have like a pretty good insight.
Yeah, I think he is. When it comes down to the right characters, he's really good at casting.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing about Lord of the Rings that's so good is that the casting is kind of impeccable.
Yes.
Whereas in this one, like I think it's harder to cast because these characters they're not on the page. They're kind of reinventing them as they go.
Yeah.
So the casting is a little out of left field a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like Jack Black was not someone people expected him to cast in this.
No, Jack Black doesn't seem like, I mean, he's not a leading man, but the character's not a leading man character, but like he is the main guy in this movie.
And I think he does a fine job.
Yeah.
But then we get Jack Driscoll.
Yes. Now he is very different
Yes.
from in the original.
Super different.
What is his job?
He is a playwright. He is no longer a swarthy seaman.
Yes.
He is a playwright.
And is he on this voyage willingly or unwillingly?
Very unwillingly, some would say.
Explain. Where is he living on the ship?
He is living down in the hold with where the animals may go sometimes.
And let me ask you this.
Yes?
Is that ever adequately explained?
I would say no, not never.
I never understood. Literally not one time. Never understood why he's living down in an animal cage. It does not make sense.
I think it's one of these things where, like, yeah, I guess it makes sense enough to me in that his situation sucks and it makes us like him a little bit more because he's going through some shit.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing right here.
Yes. And also he may or may not get to bone Naomi Watts. It is unclear.
It is implied.
We're pretty sure
It is implied that he bones.
Of all the boning, we're pretty sure that this one did happen.
Because if anyone is going to bone down with Naomi Watts in a movie, it's going to be that most handsome of actors, Adrian Brody.
Yes.
Who he's actually my favorite actor of the three.
Yo, yeah, no, he's good.
I kind of love Jack in this movie. I really like this version of Jack Driscoll.
I think the problem is that at this point I've seen so many Wes Anderson movies that I'm unable to see him as anything but a complete and utter piece of shit.
He's not a complete and utter piece of shit in the Darjeeling Limited. He's just
I'm making a face. You can't see the face that I'm making.
He's not awesome.
He's the actual worst. His wife is having a baby.
He's a very damaged person.
Okay.
He's not supposed to be a good person. He's very damaged. Grand Budapest, yeah, he's a piece of shit. We got a couple other people in this movie that I think are worth mentioning.
Yes.
We now have a new character. We have Preston. Preston is Carl Denham's like assistant.
Yes.
Who's played by the aforementioned Colin Hanks.
Yes.
He's fine.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
Colin Hanks? He does kind of disappear off the face of the earth about 3/4 of the way through the movie, if I'm not remembering correctly.
And that's kind of a problem this movie has with a lot of the characters. He's like at the theater when they get back to New York, and then we don't see him again after that.
No, we don't see him. His story has no end.
This is one of those things, and this is going to come up again and again. This is something where they said, we're going to add something to the original, and they probably didn't need to add it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just get it out of the way now. This movie is a giant gorilla-sized bag of problems.
Explain.
It generally, this is like the big first example of Peter Jackson not understanding that sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can make that argument for some of the Lord of the Rings, but yes, in general, I don't disagree.
I mean, at least in Lord of the Rings, like everything was at least in some way, shape, or a form based on something from the book.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like he's not expanding just to expand. He's trying to do justice to a piece of art.
That's fair. Yep, that's fair.
In this one, though, like the theatrical cut was over 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the extended edition is 3 hours and 20 minutes.
And you did not make me watch that.
No, I've watched it once and I
Yeah.
will never watch it again. Because, like, the regular version is the extended version.
Right.
Because it has all of these characters who do not need to be there.
Yes.
They're characters that don't need to be characters. And we know that because in the original, they weren't.
Right.
And I still am not clear as to why they felt that it was necessary for them to do this.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So Preston is one of those characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you 2 more characters.
Yep.
There's Jimmy and Hayes, as portrayed by Evan Park is Hayes. He's like the first mate.
Yep.
And then there's Jamie Bell
Yes.
as Jimmy.
And they have a special relationship.
Why?
No, unclear.
No reason.
No reason.
No reason. Jamie Bell, like Jimmy was this kid who stowed away on board. We find out about his backstory, and we find out that Mr. Hayes loves Heart of Darkness and knows a lot about the book.
Yeah, and Mr. Hayes likes to do things like look out into the middle distance and say like, "No, Jimmy, it's not."
Yeah. It's very stupid.
It's
I
very stupid.
like these are 2 fine actors doing the best they can with what they have, and what they have been given is nothing. And it like actively detracts from the movie.
Yeah.
Like I literally think it makes the movie worse
Yes, it
to
does.
have them in it. Because then when like there's a big thing in the original where Kong attacks them while they're on like a big log going across a chasm.
Yeah.
It's been in these 3 versions so far. When he does that, Hayes bites it and Jimmy's very sad.
So sad.
And then once like they go to New York, Jimmy is not in it anymore.
No, all the sailors are gone forever.
So okay. I'm going to hold off on something until we get to the end.
Yeah, I think we need to walk back a little bit because
All right.
we're making our way through this movie here. So they're going to Skull Island.
Yes. They're now going to Skull Island, and they do a number of things that I think are like at times entertaining and at times unnecessary and at times really fun if you know the original really well.
Yes.
So, for example, they are actively shooting a movie with sound on this ship
Yes.
as they are sailing. And we have another actor there. We have Kyle Chandler. We have Kyle Friday Night Lights Chandler,
Yes.
who is playing Bruce Baxter, who is on this ship. And the dialogue they are saying is all directly from the original.
It's cute.
It's just a cute way to
It's
hang
cute.
a lantern on it.
Yeah, it's
It is-
cute.
It's cute. That works for me. It's fine. Even though most of the stuff with Bruce Baxter I think doesn't need to be in this movie.
Yep.
But they get to the island and we meet the native peoples.
Yes.
Who have been problematic so far.
Yes.
How would you say they address the problematic nature of the native peoples?
Well, they treat them more as like an uncontacted tribe than an innocent people.
Yes.
Like an uncontacted tribe that has made it very clear they do not want to be contacted.
Yeah.
Like those people in the Andaman Islands that killed that missionary
Yep.
recently who had no reason to go there. Because these people kill the shit out of them.
Uh-huh.
They kill a number of them and they beat the shit out of many of them and they win the battle.
Yes.
Like they are victorious.
Well, the only way that they are defeated is because like the rest of the shipmates show up with guns.
Right. They don't like the guns. The guns do show up. That's correct.
Yeah.
But before that happens, they have chopped off quite a number of people's heads.
A couple of heads.
Yeah. And everyone's very traumatized and like the sound guy is dead.
Yep.
And they're like back on the ship and Jack Black is trying to give his guys a pep talk and he's like, Fred died doing what he loved. And I just wrote down recording sound. Like what are you talking about?
Well, that's kind of the point. Like again, antagonist.
No, it was just funny.
And it's a speech he gives multiple times because he is not the first of his crew to die.
Yeah, no, he's not. And at one point I wrote down, fuck your film. Like he just
Oh
was-
yeah.
He was trying to get his film. Like it was just terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happens next?
Okay, so anyway, the Islanders make it to the ship. They steal Anne. They bring her back, and we essentially have the same thing that happens in the original. She is given to Kong, and then the rest of the sailors, led by Jack, get to the island, and they go to save her in the jungle.
Yeah.
Now, this is where we need to talk about an actor. We need to talk about an actor named Andy Serkis,
Okay.
who many will know as that good boy Gollum.
Yes.
Andy Serkis plays maybe the most important character in this entire movie.
Yes.
And that is the cook, Lumpy.
Yeah,
Do you like my joke?
I do.
Like my lumpy joke?
He plays Lumpy. Lumpy bites it, by the way, when they go down to the bugs.
Oh, yeah, super gross.
He gets his head eaten by a bug. I hate those bugs so much.
Yeah, it's not. I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay.
He also plays Kong. Like,
Yes.
that's the important thing. Like, Andy Serkis is Kong in this movie.
As a character,
Yes.
how would you say he is different from the original?
Well, I feel like the big decision they decided to do was to turn Kong into an animal.
Yes.
He is a gorilla.
Yes, I agree with that.
He is actively a big silverback gorilla
Yes.
at this point.
Just a very big one.
And he's kind of charming.
Yeah.
Like, he really wants Anne,
Yeah.
and he is an animal. He doesn't want to hurt her. Clearly doesn't want to hurt her. He actively protects her.
Yep.
Many times. He's kind of juvenile.
Yeah, well, she's able to kind of clown around and make him laugh, which is kind of cute.
Yeah. And they actually start to form a bond. Like,
yes.
she kind of starts to
Like
feel
him.
protected by
yeah.
him.
Like they unlike I think the other versions we've seen up to this point, like she's able to form what feels like kind of a genuine relationship with him.
Yeah.
I think there's two factors to it, which is kind of interesting because it's a combination of, in terms of the special effects, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a combination of what we've seen up to this point. It is special effects. I mean, obviously it's CGI, but
Yeah.
like they didn't have that in 1933, so we'll just call it like special effects. And it's also actually a person acting a performance.
Yes.
Right? So
Not operating a suit.
not operating a suit.
performing.
Right. So with that combination of two things, I think it makes it a lot easier to see Kong as a character,
Yeah.
but also not to be taken out of it by him being a guy in a suit.
Here's my next hot take.
Yes.
Here's my hot take. Every single minute that Kong is on film in this movie, this is a good movie.
That's fair, yeah.
That's my hot take.
Yeah.
I love it. I love every single thing that happens between him and Anne in this movie. I think is beautifully shot, beautifully executed. I was sold the first day I saw this. I'm sold every single time I watch it. Throughout the movie, they have amazing scenes together. I love every minute of it, and it genuinely breaks my heart when he dies at the end.
Yeah, it's very sad. And can I say one other thing too, like
Yeah.
that I liked about this movie?
Mhm.
I got no beef with the love story. The love story between Anne and Adrian Brody.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of dug it. Like it was sweet, and I could see what they liked about each other. It
Mhm.
wasn't just like, oh, she's a chick and he's a guy, and there they are, and they're good looking, so they get together. Like I could see them. Like, you know, as you say, like she seems like she has a genuine relationship with the gorilla. She also seemed like she had a genuine relationship with Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
I thought I would find the love story really cheesy, but I liked it.
So I do think Andy Serkis does a great job. He does his normal, like, now we know how much research he puts into his things and
Yeah.
how much, like, this is Andy Serkis who has now been the lead in 3 Planet of the Apes movies.
Right.
Like, this is someone who has spent a long time doing this, and this is where it really started.
Right.
Kong is just this amazingly realized character. I have no beef with Kong in King Kong whatsoever.
Cool.
And there's one other thing that I think is important to say here,
Okay.
which is that I really think this is giving us something we've never seen before,
Okay. Yes.
which is a giant creature that is a character
Mm.
and actually emotes with the emotion of an actor
Yes.
because it is performance capture.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of times we've seen it. Like, we've seen characters played by people where, like, Gollum's amazing.
Yeah. But he's a character. Like he
yeah.
speaks and has words.
Right. And we've seen, like, creatures in things before, but this was something that I feel like I had never seen ever, which was something that was an animal that was able to connect with me like a character would.
Yes.
So I really think they did something that had never been done before.
Yeah.
Does it have the momentum that the original has?
Hell no.
Never. Like, never.
There's so many unnecessary scenes in this movie. They could have got this down to 90 minutes, I bet.
Yeah. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is a cut of this movie that exists out there that must be so much better. Like, and it's not even just that, like, the talking scenes go on too long.
Yeah.
The action scenes go on too
Oh,
long.
so long.
The action scenes are these amazing, like, other people have talked about this more than we have, but, like, and in better ways than we have. But, like, the action scenes are just an exercise in how can we keep a character, quote unquote, in peril for the longest amount of time possible, but also never get to a point where the audience is worried about something happening to them.
Yeah, like the last big animal fight sequence on the island, I don't know. It felt like very long. I would say may have been 45 minutes of the movie.
You're talking about when he fights the three, like, they're called V-Rexes, by the way.
Yeah,
because they've evolved.
Right. It just like went on forever. But as you say, there was no like pacing or climax to it. It's just like fighting forever.
Yeah. There's no... I actually think the pacing of this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
You got so much out of it. It's such a mess. But like, if there wasn't good stuff in it, I wouldn't care about it.
Right.
And I could just write it off.
Right.
But this is such a weird middle of the road movie for me where there's stuff in it that's amazing and stuff in it that is just a mess.
Yeah.
Okay, let's skip forward a little bit.
They get off the island.
They get off the island. They take him to New York. Kong escapes. There's like a beautiful scene. I love it. This is one of those things where like a lot of people hated it. I really love it. What'd you think of the ice skating scene?
I mean...
You can not like it. That's fine.
I enjoyed how much you liked it.
I really love it. There's a scene where like Kong is on the ice with Anne, and she's really happy to see him, and she cares about him.
Yeah, I know.
She really cares about him. And then he like goes to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Yep, that's what happens. He goes to the top of the Empire State Building, and then a bunch of planes come by, and one of whom is like flown by Rick Baker, which was really cool.
That's cool.
And they shoot him, and he falls, and we get the line, and Jack Black gets to end the movie by saying it wasn't the airplanes that killed him, it was the beauty that killed the beast. This movie, like looking back on it, this movie is obsessed with foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Like every single thing that happens in the first half hour is overtly foreshadowing something that's going to happen later.
Yeah.
But I feel like only in a way that's rewarding if you know the original.
Yeah.
Would you? Because you didn't really know. Well, you'd seen the original.
I mean,
when
I'd
we watched
obviously
this.
seen the original.
Like, I don't know that this works for people that haven't seen it.
No, I'm not sure that it does. But which is, I guess, okay. I don't think it doesn't work. You just wouldn't get all those references.
Yeah. Can I just say, like, here's my big last thing before we move on to the next
Let me
one.
just interrupt you for 1 second, because there was a piece of movie making trivia that we found out that was really delightful about the music. Or not the music necessarily, but how it was created. Can you explain a little bit?
All right, so here's the story. Howard Shore is a composer. He did all of the music for the Lord of the Rings movies. Did an amazing job. He then was going to do the score for King Kong. Now, as many people know, you shoot the movie before you score it.
Right.
That's how it works. So they're in the theater. Oh, we didn't even talk about the theater.
Yeah.
On Broadway. So when they go to Broadway, they get a big musical number.
Yeah.
And the musical number is the score from the original. And there's all these dancers who are all dressed up as Africans with gorilla suits on. And they're basically doing the exact same dance scene to the same music from the original.
Yes, correct. Because they didn't want to reenact what actually happened, which was that they got the shit beat out of them, and many of them beheaded and killed.
This is just one of those things that like didn't need to be there, but it's charming, and at least they're saying we understand as filmmakers in 2005 that what was in the original, this part of it was problematic.
Yes.
So we're going to keep it, but we're going to present it as problematic.
We're going to present it in a 1933 context.
Which is problematic to a modern audience. We're not going to sugarcoat it. This is problematic.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But there is an orchestra.
Yes, who is conducting the orchestra?
Howard Shore.
And we went, is that Howard Shore?
Yeah. Well, I knew it going in.
But let me ask you this.
Yes.
Whose music is Howard Shore conducting?
Technically, he's conducting the music from the original.
Right.
He's never conducting the music from this movie.
But
the music that is in the rest of this movie is composed by James Newton Howard, who is not Howard Shore.
And why would that be?
Because Howard Shore and Peter Jackson parted ways after the shooting of this movie.
They fell out.
I guess Peter Jackson, I don't know the story. Apparently, like Peter Jackson, they just didn't. Howard Shore was doing stuff that Peter Jackson didn't like, and he couldn't do the thing that he wanted to do. And he said, "Cool, we're still friends, but I'm not going to do this movie anymore." They had
artistic differences, but I just think it's hilarious that he's in the movie.
I know.
What a kick in the teeth!
It's so weird that that's his involvement in it.
Yeah. Okay, you were going to wrap up.
Okay, so this is my big final thing about this, and what I see as like the central conflict of this movie and why it's not great. I think the last few minutes of this movie is amazing when Kong is dying and Anne is at the top of the Empire State Building. It is heartbreaking. They are two real characters that have developed a relationship with each other. I think it is beautiful. And then when Jack comes up to save her, they share a moment that is informed by so many things that have happened in their relationship over the course of the movie.
Yep.
I think that those last couple of minutes are some of the best stuff Peter Jackson has ever done.
Yeah.
I truly feel that. The problem was, I really think he needed to go back through his movie, knowing what those last few minutes were, which he did, because he made it.
He made it.
And basically look at every single scene in the rest of the movie and just ask, does this scene serve to make those last few minutes better?
Yes.
And if they don't, they need to go.
Does Lumpy make the final love scene at the top of the Empire State Building better?
As part of like a fun cast of characters on an adventure they were on, I would say yes.
Okay.
But he doesn't need to be in as much of it. Lumpy's not even my problem. It's
I got
Jimmy.
no beef with Lumpy. It's Jimmy.
It's Jimmy and Mr. Hayes that I have a huge problem with. They have no point in this movie whatsoever.
I just said Lumpy because it's a funnier name.
I know. Lumpy's fun. Andy
right.
Serkis is fun. So this movie is just kind of like this just a big mess. I think there's amazing stuff in it. And when we do our quadrants, we'll talk about it
Cool.
a little bit more. So let's skip ahead 12 years. And we get a new version of King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I said before that I brought up King Kong versus Godzilla for a reason.
Yes.
And this is the reason.
This is the reason. Here we are.
We are talking about Kong Skull Island as an adaptation of King Kong, which is kind of half true because it doesn't exist to be a remake of King Kong. It exists to tie in with 2014's Godzilla.
Which you can hear our thoughts on if you listen to our Godzilla episode.
Yes. Also, now you can hear my thoughts on Godzilla King of the Monsters,
There you
which
go.
which has come out since our Godzilla episode, and I have seen it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what did you think of it?
I fucking hated it. I hated it so much.
So true.
much. We might cover it in the future. I kind
Maybe.
of don't want to watch it
I
again.
don't want to watch it at all.
But we are getting, in the next year or two, we are getting Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes.
That is happening with this new Kong.
Mhm.
So, like, why are we covering it if it's really more of a remake of King Kong versus Godzilla? I think we're covering it because it actually is a King Kong movie.
Oh, it is. I mean, like, Godzilla is not in this movie.
Right.
Except as sort of a foreshadowing tool at the very end.
Yeah, which we never got in the original King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, Kong didn't get his own movie in Toho.
Yeah.
Like, Toho just immediately put him with Godzilla.
Yeah.
So we get a movie where a whole bunch of people go to Skull Island and they interact with Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot in it that is from the original,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a reimagining.
Yes, it is.
Just to get this out of the way,
Yes.
because I think this movie got mixed reviews when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think?
I mean, here, of all of the movies
Yes.
that we watched that were King Kong movies,
Uh-huh.
I would say I enjoyed watching this movie the most.
Me too.
Hmm.
Which is weird to say.
It is weird to
Because,
say.
like, I love the original and I grew up on it.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, I kind of love Kong Skull Island.
Well, I mean, I guess it shouldn't come as a huge surprise because I also like the Godzilla movie that these same filmmakers made.
yeah.
So, like, clearly they know how to tell a monster story.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I liked a lot of the actors in it. Like, you know, sort of the 2005 movie had people that were kind of big in 2005, and now you kind of look at it and go, oh, okay, yeah, what's Jack Black been doing? But the 2017 one had people that are kind of big now. So
Yeah.
it was like, oh, it's cool to see, you know, these guys.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go through the plot really quickly?
Yeah, let's do that.
So this is a quick version because this is it's got a lot of plot. This movie has a lot of plot.
Yeah, let's go as quick as we can.
But a lot of plot in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah,
which-
amazingly.
Which is good. I also will really recommend that people watch, if anyone here has ever watched Honest Trailers on YouTube, the Honest Trailer for Kong Skull Island is really special in that it's very funny, but also was co-written by Jordan Vogt-Roberts, the director of this movie.
Yes.
And I find it to be delightful.
Who seems to have a good attitude towards the whole thing.
He's really critical of himself.
Seems like a good sport.
And I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He had directed one movie before, like one kind of bigger movie before this called The Kings of Summer.
Mm-hmm.
He was just this indie filmmaker, and Legendary Pictures said, we are going to pluck this guy out and we're going to give him $200 million to
Him
make
and
make us a big gorilla movie.
Him and his beard.
He's got a very long beard. It's a very, very big beard.
It's a big beard.
Like, I have nothing else to say about the people who made this movie. Do you know who wrote the screenplay?
No.
Everybody.
Cool.
So many people wrote this. It is just...
It shows a little
It
bit.
takes a village. It sure does.
Yeah.
It sure. This is not a perfect movie. Okay, so here's the plot.
Okay.
It is unlike the previous ones. It does not take place in the 1930s.
Mm-mm.
And unlike the King Kong that takes place in 1976 and takes place in the 70s, it takes place in the 70s.
Yeah, it does take place in the 70s.
It is a period piece.
It is.
That takes place in the 70s.
Yeah, and all they had to do was take the Forrest Gump soundtrack from the Vietnam the Vietnam section because all the songs are the same.
Yep. It really leans heavily into the whole Vietnam thing. It
Do you
really
want to try that again?
Yes, it really leans heavily into the whole Vietnam thing.
It really does.
So we have 1 million characters in this movie.
Yeah, so many.
Some would say too many. but that's okay because they're all played by really compelling actors,
Yep.
which is nice. So here's what's going on. We have a whole bunch of people that want to get to this island. We have Monarch, who is an organization that we have met in the original Godzilla movie from 2014. They know a lot about big monsters. They are led by
John Goodman.
John Goodman, who's a fucking delight in everything he's ever in.
Yep, and then he dies halfway through.
He beefs it.
Yeah.
A lot of people beef it in this movie. And he's got his assistant, Corey Hawkins. And there's a whole bunch of people from
makes it to the
Monarch.
end, I think.
He
Yeah.
does. He's great as Houston. They need to get to this island, so they attach themselves to Landsat, who is a scientific organization that is going to be studying this island because it has been discovered. That was actually one thing that I do respond to about setting it in the 70s. This was like the last time that we didn't know where everything was on the planet.
Yeah.
Because satellites are now new.
Yes, and there was this whole thread of like, well, if we don't go there, Russia's going to find it on their satellites. Like, it was like a Cold War thing. Like, it was a whole thing.
I think it's smart writing.
Yes,
I like that.
It's good.
I don't think you could set it today because we all, like, you can't have a mysterious island today.
No, we know everything is.
It doesn't work. So we have the Landsat crew, who there's a number of good actors there. Is there one actor in particular that you just really, really like who is part of the Landsat crew?
Sparks, Nevada, Marshall on Mars.
Do you want to give our audience some context for that?
It's Mark Evan Jackson, who also plays Kevin on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's wonderful.
And who is Sparks Nevada Marshall on Mars?
It's the character he played on the Thrilling Adventure Radio Hour podcast, and it's like one of my favorite fictional characters of all time.
We'll link to one of those.
Yeah.
He's great. Mark Evan Jackson is a delight in this movie. We also have a whole bunch of army dudes because they need an armed escort. And the army dudes there's just so many of them.
Yes.
I will give you the one who is most important, and that is Samuel L. Jackson as Preston Packard. Colonel Packard.
Yes. He's seen some shit.
Yep.
And does not want to go home.
No, he doesn't. They are all going home. We meet all of his guys, and they're all like just on the spectrum of fine to delightful.
Yeah.
I like all of them. One in particular is Cole, played by Shea Wiggum. He's great. He's the one who like is older than the rest of them and a little more experienced.
I like him.
He's super, super fun. They're all fun. They're all compelling.
He also beefs it.
Everyone beefs it.
Yeah.
Tons of people beef it in this movie. But they're all about to go home, and Colonel Packard gets this call saying, we need some guys to like escort these people to an island. He
He's
goes,
like, thank God.
thank you so much. I want to see some shit. And see it they do, because unlike previous ones where like there's 45 minutes before we even get to the island and then we finally see Kong. When did we see Kong in this movie?
Oh, almost immediately.
Like when they get to the island, like we'll talk about the flashback in a second, but when they get to the island, they immediately meet Kong.
Yes.
They meet him in their dozen helicopters. What does he do to the helicopters?
Oh, he fucking knocks them out of the sky.
Why does he do that?
Because they are trying to blow up his island.
And also him.
Yes.
They are shooting him and blowing up his island, and he is responding in a way that makes sense.
Because he was minding his goddamn business.
Okay, so there's...
At one point I was like, they like started setting off these bombs, and I turned to you and I was like, I guess I misunderstood what a geological survey was. And you were like, yes, you have misunderstood.
Well, this is actually a cool thing where like it was so surprising to, because I'd never seen the 70s version before.
Yeah.
It's so surprising that like setting off bombs to do a geological survey is the thing that they were doing in the 70s version.
Yeah.
I didn't expect I didn't expect this to be referencing that King Kong.
Yeah.
And yet we have it.
Here we are.
So there's a number of other people. Let's talk about two more people that are on the ship with them.
Yes.
They hire a tracker. He is former British Special Forces, also former Asgardian, former God of Mischief, Tom Hiddleston. There's a lot of Marvel people in this movie.
Yeah, well.
Well, I guess that's just going to happen more and more because there's so many movies and so many actors.
Exactly.
Okay, so they hire him. He's James Conrad. We get another Heart of Darkness reference.
Yeah.
With this character's name.
Ugh.
He's what? Like, I find him fun and compelling, but like, is he a great character?
No, he's okay. He doesn't have he doesn't go on a journey really. We don't know a lot about him.
I feel like the thing that's most refreshing about his character is not what he does, but what he doesn't do.
Yeah.
Because what he doesn't do is he doesn't, as the handsome man on the boat, he doesn't fall in love with the pretty lady on the boat.
He does not even a little.
And the pretty lady is Mason Weaver.
Yes.
Who is a war photographer.
Yes.
Played by Brie Larson.
Excuse me, she's an anti-war photographer.
Yes. No, that is in the writing of the movie. That's in the dialogue, the thing you just said.
Yep.
What'd you think of Mason Weaver as a character?
I really liked her.
Yeah.
I thought she was great. No, I thought she was great. She was like, she had exactly the right background to not be too sort of taken aback by what she was seeing,
Mhm.
but also at the same time be totally freaked out by it. But also at the same time, we know she's a very compassionate person. So, for example, like the scene where she meets Kong because she's trying to lift a car off a poor
There's
wildebeest.
no cars in there. It's a helicopter.
It's a helicopter. Oh, right. That's right.
And sorry, giant wildebeest.
Yeah, giant wildebeest. It was so sad. There were so many like sad animals in this movie. It made me really sad.
Well, and that's just a super quick thing. A big difference in this movie is Kong is the protector of the island.
Yes.
Like, Kong's not hurting any of the animals.
No.
The only animals he's hurting are the skull crawlers.
Yes.
Because there's bad animals on this island.
Right. He is by far the protector, and we learn if Kong leaves the island is going to be destroyed, essentially.
Yeah. And the skull crawlers are going to go out and kill all of us. And there's also, like, let's loop back around to Mason Weaver really quickly.
Yeah. So, like, anyway, I liked her as a character, and it was pretty refreshing that she didn't fall in love with Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, it's nice. Like, they definitely develop a relationship.
Yeah.
But it's like a mutual respect.
Yes.
It's not a love relationship.
No, I think she's gay.
I think the big thing about the characters in this movie, and I think she's a really good example of it, is, the writing is not amazing. It's not like she's given amazing things to do, but they do a really good job casting, and they do a really good job drawing the characters in a really clear way at the beginning.
Yes.
In a compelling way.
Yes.
So even though, she doesn't go through a journey or an arc, and there are like faults with the movie, it still is super fun to watch because the characters are well drawn at the beginning.
Yes, I agree.
So there's one other person on this island.
Yeah, let's talk about this
who's
island.
living with a bunch of people on this island. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's people on the island. There's
So
a
many people.
bunch of native people that live on this island.
Mm-hmm.
In order to talk about this person, we've got to talk about the very beginning of the movie.
Okay.
Because were you expecting this movie to start with a flashback to World War II?
I was not.
Yeah. So we meet these two pilots, one an American and one Japanese, who crash land on this island in the middle of fighting each other, and they try to kill each other. And they can't because Kong shows up. Like, Kong is literally in the first 5 minutes of this movie, which I respect.
Yes.
That's making a choice. We're not going to make him a mystery. He is there. And that American pilot, he grows up to be John C. Reilly.
One of our most admired actors. We love him in this house.
Never not fun in anything he's in. And, like, if you want to elevate mediocre writing, put people like Samuel L. Jackson in your movie. Put people like Brie Larson in your movie. Put people like John C. Reilly or John Goodman in your movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's
everyone that you just mentioned, a pure delight.
like they just make this work.
Yes.
And he is a little crazy because he's been on this island for 30 years.
With all these people. Well, with his friend.
Yes.
So we learned that they became fast friends. And then he was killed by, Japanese friend was killed by the skull crawler guys. And he's sad about that.
Yeah, let's talk about these native people, though.
Yeah.
How would you say they compare to the natives in every other version of these movies?
Extremely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have a well-established society.
Yep.
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them very old. Like, clearly this is kind of a
Well, they have, like, the ones in blue, they are all, like, designated by
they're
color.
like elders.
Like, the blue ones are the elders.
Yeah.
But all the rest of them are, like, there's a lot of young people there.
Yeah, like just like a very clearly like very, and I'm sorry to use this word, but like a very civilized society.
Mhm.
They're not like the Islanders from the previous movies.
No.
Let's just put it that way.
Basically, I feel like they've traded a really, really problematic trope, which is like the savage.
Yeah.
And they've traded it for another trope that is also problematic.
Yeah, they're Mystic Orientals now.
Well, no, I was going to say the noble savage.
Oh, okay.
Like,
that's fair.
I wouldn't even, like, yeah, there's the Mystic Oriental thing, but I feel like the Mystic Oriental thing is more like, that's usually like a single character.
Yeah, that's totally
who is
fair.
really wise and
Yeah.
always speaks in a very Confucian way.
Yeah.
You know? Can I say that? Confusion?
Confucian?
Like of Confucius?
Confucian.
Confucian.
Yes.
Okay, cool. They're definitely more of the noble savage.
Yeah. Okay,
Like,
that makes sense. Yeah,
They are very wise and kind to each other.
They're very calm.
Very
they don't really
aloof.
speak.
Yeah. So, like, still not perfect.
Yeah.
But I think way less problematic than the original ones.
And John C. Reilly is he's not like integrated into their society, but like he kind of lives a little bit separately, but like he treats them with a lot of respect.
Yes, like, and he really tells everyone else to treat them with respect
He
too.
does, yes.
And then they leave, and we leave these people, and then like never go to New York.
Nope.
That never happens in this movie. Kong Skull Island takes place 100% on Skull Island.
Yep.
Which that's kind of cool.
Yep,
Kind of like that.
The sort of couple different factions, and they get split up, and then they've got a boat, and then they meet up, and then Samuel L. Jackson is trying to get back to this one guy that got separated, even though we know he's dead. And
Well, that's because he's got all the weapons.
yes, he has the
And Colonel Packard,
Yep.
as our antagonist, he's got a thing he wants.
yes.
He wants to kill Kong.
Yeah, this guy is the crazy guy from Apocalypse Now. Like this movie pays heavy tribute to Apocalypse Now.
It really does.
Yeah.
And in a superficial way that doesn't annoy me.
Yeah.
Like, it's superficial in that it's like, we're going to have fun. We're going to make a fun movie. And yes, it is inspired by Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
Yes.
I'm totally fine with it. Anyway, they end up fighting Kong, and they end up taking down the big guy. They don't kill him.
Yeah.
They take him down, and this gives the big mama skullcrawler the what she needs. This is the moment she needs to pop out of the ground because she's been living underground.
And this was the thing that we did not want to have happen.
And it has happened, and now we get a big fight between Kong and the giant skullcrawler.
Yes.
And super big fun monster fight.
Yeah.
Like, I like a big fun monster fight.
Sure.
This is a movie that I think succeeds because of moments.
Yeah.
It is just full of fun, interesting moments that are shot and staged in an interesting way. It never takes itself too seriously.
No, there's definitely like funny jokes in it.
I guess the big thing is I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a movie that succeeds because of its moments. I don't want to spoil those moments.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't seen it, I would say see it. You may not love it. Some people didn't, but like we thought it was super fun.
Yeah, like I feel like it's recent enough that like maybe we shouldn't give away the ending because it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to give away this stuff. And yes, it is going to tie in with the other like Godzilla movies. We're going to get Kong versus Godzilla. I want to look back though at the other ones because we're going to do our quadrants, but I want to look at all of them through a different lens for a second before we get to our quadrants.
Mhm.
Again, I want to go back to the original. It succeeds because of two things. One, it showed people things they'd never seen before. And two, it was just a really fun movie that had a lot of momentum.
Mhm.
1976. Does it show people something they'd never seen before?
No.
Is it fun and does it have good momentum?
No.
Okay. 2005.
Yeah.
Does it show people something they've never seen before?
Yes, as we have established.
Is it really fun and have great momentum?
No.
No. Sometimes, but usually not.
Yeah.
Kong Skull Island. Does it show something that people have never seen before?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the CGI is good, but it's not like something I've never seen before.
Right. Like, we live in an era where we see this kind of stuff all the time. So I actually respect the fact that it's not taking itself so seriously that it thinks it can show us something we've never seen before.
Right.
We're not there yet. Like, I don't know what that next thing is going to be, but this isn't trying to be that.
Right.
This is trying to be instead, let me ask you this.
Yes.
Is this a fun movie with really good momentum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of in that respect, it's the closest to the original.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie about people who go to an island and like there's dinosaurs and a giant gorilla.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not showing us something we've never seen before, but in a lot of ways, I feel like it's closest to the original.
Yeah. Well, I guess that was our quadrants right there.
Well, no, let's do the quadrants for real now.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, 1976. Do you think they care about the original?
No.
No, they thought we could do better. Did they? Is it successful?
No.
Did they do better?
No.
No, it's just terrible. I hated it. Hated it.
It's really bad.
2005. Did they care about the original?
Deeply.
Deeply. My God. Is it successful?
Yeah, it's on the line. It's on the line. There's successful stuff in it.
Yes. And really, this is like, to me, the definition of a movie that is on the line.
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
Do you get the sense that they loved the original?
No, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
This is a young director. He's like our age or younger.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that grew up on Jurassic Park. He
Mhm.
did not grow up on the 1933 King Kong. So I'm going to say no, but like not as if it were a bad thing. Like I think he loves movie monsters.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
We can't say for certain that he didn't grow up on the original.
Yeah.
And there are references to the original.
Sure.
And I
I'm not saying he's
actually,
never seen it.
I bet he does really like it. But if we're looking at all the people who made this movie, love of the original was not driving them.
Yeah. No.
I think that, in fact, I bet a lot of the stuff that's from the original was brought to it by the director and the screenwriters.
Mhm.
I don't think the studio cared about it because what they wanted was a way to tie him into Godzilla.
Right.
So the original one wasn't. So I would say if we're looking at the production, they did not care about the
Sure.
original, even though individuals might have.
Sure.
Is it successful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a really fun movie.
It's a really fun movie.
I would recommend that everybody at least give it a chance.
Yeah. So now having watched all these King's Kong,
Yeah.
do you still feel as strongly as you did about the original 1933 King Kong?
I still love it.
Yeah.
I still love it. I'm still going to watch it many, many times.
Great.
I think it is super fun. Here's what I'm gonna do. I am gonna watch the original many times. I am never going to watch the 1976 version again.
Nope.
I am going to fast forward through the 2005 version many times and watch the pieces I like. And yeah, I'm going to watch Kong Skull Island a bunch.
Cool.
Because it's super fun.
Great.
Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 2 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated.
And in the words of Samuel L. Jackson from Kong Skull Island, hold on to your butts.
That's also from Jurassic Park. Oh, I see what they did. I get it now.
Bye, everybody.